We've got the pre-budget sort of drops taking shape. Among them is going to be more money, as you heard there before, for pracs, if you like. So this is in-job payments, particularly for nurses and teachers who do quite lengthy ones. Also, a reduction in help debt as well. Joining me now is the Shadow Education Minister, Sarah Henderson. Thanks very much for your time. So this is about, says the government, reducing some of these big increases in help debts because of inflation and also getting more frontline workers into the system in Australia. Are these good moves?
Well, Tom, good afternoon and great to join you. Well, firstly, on the changes to HECS, this has been made necessary because of Labor's shockingly high inflation, which has meant very high HECS indexation. In fact, it was tracking to 16% increases in student debt for 3 million Australians. So while this provides some moderate relief, it is a mess of Labor's own making because of the government's homegrown inflation, which has driven very high HECS indexation. Students are really suffering, and even after the government's changes, Tom, the average loan of about $26,000 will still cost students some $2,800 since Labor was elected. So, frankly, this is HECS debt chaos under this government, in contrast to when the Coalition was in government, when indexation was 1.7% on average.
Right, but that's as well because a lot of things were lower back then. What this does is tie it to wage growth or inflation, whatever is in fact lower. That's going to make a real difference, isn't it? Because at the moment, the last few months at least, we've actually had real wage growth.
Well, now, in fact, this is an admission that wages are declining, real wages are declining when they fall below CPI. And that's exactly what happened last year. And even with these changes, Tom, we are seeing a forecast indexation rate this year of 4%. So this is not going to provide students very much relief at all. And they are still facing very high increases in their student debt. And as we know, the higher the student debt, the more difficult it is for students not just to repay that debt, but to get a loan for their first home.
Okay.
So when you think about students battling the cost of living, putting food on the table, power bills, the housing crisis, it has not been a good few years for young Australians under this government.
Okay. We did return to real wages growth at the start of this year, but nonetheless, can I get it in a short version? Are you saying you back this change, but you would pledge to do more?
Tom, we will look at the detail. We will go through our normal processes through Shadow Cabinet and through the party room. But as I say, this is a mess of Labor's own making. That's the bottom line, and this is a mess that Labor has to fix.
Well, I mean, we had inflation around the world spike, and that was already tied, I should make clear for our viewers, it was tied to CPI before Labor came in, that particular help element. What about the other aspects, giving payments to people? They might be having these pretty long placements in whether they're doing nursing or teaching. Is that a good shift?
Well, again, we will look at the detail. We haven't seen any of the detail. The legislation will come into the Parliament. It will go through our ordinary processes. I mean, this does look positive because students are really suffering the cost of living crisis, as we know. As I just mentioned, and of course placement poverty is a real issue, but we are concerned about a range of matters so far as what we know, including who will be eligible. And also the Minister did actually say the states would be paying for this because the states are the actual primary employers of student teachers and student nurses. So where are the states in all of this? Or has Jason Clare been rolled once again by the states?
We'll get their response on that. Just jumping in because a couple of things I want to get to. The other interesting thing, the change made during the Coalition, the so-called Jobs Ready program, which changed the price of degrees, the review that Labor's using to make some of these changes actually found that didn't work. The aim was to have fewer people studying things such as arts and more job shortages are addressed for us. Are you going to review that yourself, given it was a Coalition change, and whether you'd stick to it?
Well, let me just say, Tom, on the Job Ready Graduate Program, we rolled out a whole range of very important initiatives, including for rural and regional students, and the government has accepted a number of those. But on the cost of degrees, we dramatically lowered the cost of degrees for engineers, for scientists, for those studying maths, for nurses and teachers. So is the government saying that they are going to increase the cost of those degrees? Because it did say it would overturn the Job Ready Graduates Program. Now we see that it's kicking the can down the road with no commitment to change anything. So clearly that is a tacit endorsement of the Job Ready Graduates Program.
All right, we'll see. Apparently the Minister responds on that soon, so we'll get his response, your response to that. You just put out a release, actually, that Jason and Claire must ban hate speech at universities. We're nearly out of time, so I'll just get this if I can. So this includes the use of so-called anti-Jewish terrorist slogans. You've included in this intifada, and obviously from the river to the sea. What should he actually do here? Banning hate speech, does that mean for all sides on university campuses?
Absolutely. The Minister has shown a complete lack of leadership. It's appalling that he is saying that these terrorist slogans could mean different things to different people. These slogans, the use of the word intifada in this context is calling for a violent uprising or terrorism against Israel. The use of river to the sea means the destruction of Israel. It is appalling that he is seeking to defend these terms. They must be banned. I've had a round table of Jewish students and staff this morning in Sydney, my second one. The horror stories we are hearing on the lack of safety for Jewish students and staff, it is absolutely appalling. This minister has been weak. If he will not ban hate speech, if the Prime Minister won't step in, he should resign.